not miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
Bomin Irani, your acting career begins at a very young age of 41. And so usse pehle it was photography. You had captured India through the lens of a photographer, and then you worked in the hospitality sector as well. Before that. So while you were, dabbling between so many roles, which one is it, and when was it that you realized that it is acting?
I think when I was very young, my love was always cinema, actually. I used to watch all kinds of movies even at a very young age. Very young, and a lot of people used to wonder why I would watch movies that were not part of my pay grade. Why am I watching these kind of movies? Not because they were adult or they were, I just loved the movies. And my mother encouraged me to watch movies. I understood the world, humanity, the human condition, art, music, drama, lyrics, everything. Lighting, I love lighting. So my thing was I always wanted to be a director, actually. Strangely. I never saw myself in movies, but I love to act.
You are watching The World 24/7 on the NDTV network. I'm Parmeshwar Bava. We've got an action-packed bulletin lined up for you. Let's begin with the top stories you need to know. The United States has selected a design for the futuristic Golden Dome missile defense system. The US President, Donald Trump, has said, adding that it will be operational by the end of his time in office. UK-Israeli relations have plunged to their worst state for decades after the British Foreign Secretary David Lammy suspended negotiations over a new free trade deal, saying Israel's cabinet minister's calls to purify Gaza by expelling Palestinians were repellent, monstrous, and extremist. Indian writer, lawyer, activist Banu Mushtaq has scripted history by winning the International Booker Prize for the short story anthology Heartland. External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar is on a three-nation European tour. His first overseas visit after the India-Pakistan conflict. He has met delegates in the Netherlands and is scheduled to visit Denmark and Germany. Over the last few weeks, COVID-19 cases have surged in Asia, particularly in Thailand, Singapore and Hong Kong. While populations in these countries are witnessing increased hospitalizations, India is seeing a mild uptick. As per reports, Apple supplier Foxconn will invest $1.5 billion in its India unit as the iPhone maker shifts more manufacturing out of tariff-hit China. Well, what if America could actually shoot down missiles launched from space or intercept a nuclear warhead hurtling from the other side of the globe? Sounds like science fiction to many, but not to President Donald Trump. In a dramatic Oval Office announcement, Donald Trump unveiled his boldest military move yet in his second term, a $175 billion plan to build an ultra-ambitious missile defense system dubbed the Golden Dome. And no, it's not just a shinier version of Israel's Iron Dome. Trump claims this one can track and destroy threats from anywhere, even outer space. Trump, seated with a poster next to him showing the continental US painted gold and with artistic depictions of missile interception, said, "This is very important for the success and even survival of our country." He said that system will be entirely made in the US. It's an evil world out there, the president declared, flanked by the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and US Space Force generals, as he sold his vision of a next-gen globe-spanning missile shield, a space-age umbrella to protect the American homeland. But what exactly is the catch, and can it actually work? Well, some experts and analysts are questioning that, but just listen in to the US President's detailed remarks.
In the campaign, I promised the American people that I would build a cutting-edge missile defense shield to protect our homeland from the threat of foreign missile attack. And that's what we're doing. Today, I'm pleased to announce that we have officially selected an architecture for this state-of-the-art system that will deploy next-generation technologies across the land, sea, and space, including space-based sensors and interceptors.
In other news, UK-Israeli relations have plunged to their worst state for decades after the British Foreign Secretary David Lammy suspended negotiations over a new free trade deal, saying Israel's cabinet minister's calls to purify Gaza by expelling Palestinians were repellent, monstrous, and extremist. He also said wider talks about a future bilateral strategic roadmap with Israel were being reviewed, but at the same time, EU foreign ministers meeting in Brussels decided to review the bloc's trade agreement with Israel. Before we go across to Ollie Barrett's report, listen in to what David Lammy had to say, followed by the EU foreign policy chief's reaction.
Therefore, today, I'm announcing that we have suspended negotiations with this Israeli government on a new free trade agreement. We will be reviewing cooperation with them under the 2030 bilateral roadmap. The Netanyahu's government's actions have made this necessary, Madam Deputy Speaker. Today, my honourable friend, the Minister for the Middle East, is summoning the Israeli ambassador to the Foreign Office to convey this message. I say now to the people of Israel, I want a strong friendship with you based on shared values, with flourishing ties between our people and societies. We are unwavering in our commitment to your security and to your future, to countering the very real threat from Iran, the scourge of terrorism, and the evils of anti-Semitism. But the conduct of the war in Gaza is damaging our relationship with your government.
The situation in Gaza is catastrophic. The aid that Israel has allowed in is, of course, welcomed, but it's a drop in the ocean. Aid must flow immediately, without obstruction and at scale, because this is what is needed. I've made these points also with my talks with Israelis. Also, I've had talks with UN and the regional leaders as well. Pressure is necessary to change the situation. It is clear from today's discussion that there is a strong majority in favor of review of Article 2 of our association agreement with Israel. So we will launch this exercise. And in the meantime, it is up to Israel to unblock the humanitarian aid. Saving lives must be our top priority.
The UK has paused any trade talks with Israel. It is also introducing sanctions, including asset freezes and travel bans on 3 individuals and 4 companies, in the words of the government, who are carrying out heinous abuses of human rights. Israel's ambassador to the UK has also been summoned to speak to one of the UK's Middle East ministers so that, according to David Lammy, it can be conveyed that the Netanyahu government's actions have made this necessary. Now, Israel, for its part, says that actually trade talks weren't moving anywhere anyway, that progress was not being made on trade discussions with the Keir Starmer government, and it also says that external pressure won't divert it from its aims. It was the Foreign Secretary David Lammy who set out this course of action from the UK government in the House of Commons. There were some, at times, angry and certainly passionate scenes in the House of Commons as he did so. Priti Patel, who spoke for the opposition Conservatives, insisted that the action that the UK government is taken would be being welcomed by Hamas, she said. But there were also some Labour MPs from David Lammy's own party who want the government to go further and suggest that they believe the government should now put put in place a complete arms embargo on Israel. We are not at that point yet, but the UK government says it absolutely will consider further action if it believes it is necessary. We also know that several European Union member states are also recommending that the EU pause its trade association with Israel as a result of the humanitarian issues in Gaza and the expanding military operation from Israel there. Certainly in the last 24 hours or so, relations between the UK and Israel have deteriorated significantly. There's also been a significant shift in tone from the UK government, which believes that the conditions in Gaza as a result of Israel's actions are, it says, intolerable. As I say, the UK government insisting that it will go further in the days and weeks ahead if it believes it's necessary. Ollie Barrett, NDTV, London.
And joining us for an expert's view on the matter, live at the moment, James Bowden. James, as always, thank you so much for making time for us and joining us on NDTV. Let's talk about whether this is the biggest diplomatic blow yet that the UK has served to Israel. And would you say this is a principled stance or political posturing?
I think it's more posturing. They really need to go further, much further in their response. Israel has heard about sanctions ever since the beginning of this war, and they have either had the threat of sanctions, imposed sanctions, or some other move made during this war, as I said. And so what I would argue for is suspension of visas, travel visas, tourist, business, those kinds of things, even up to possibly the suspension of diplomatic relations for a period of time. Israel has become so numb to these stances and this posturing that there needs to be a new shock to the system in order to get their attention and really move the needle as far as getting them to compromise.
Right, James, also let's talk about timing. Why is this rupture happening now after months of bloodshed? Can you just take us through what's changed politically in London, in Brussels, and perhaps even Washington?
Well, I just really think that everybody, as I have, we've been watching the images of suffering Palestinians, children, women, even some of the men. Think about like the elderly men and women in the Gaza Strip who are suffering. I mean, this is starvation. This is slow death.
Absolutely.
And so people are saying enough is enough, and we've got to do something now at this point. I mean, I think there was a hope that Israel was going to relieve this siege much sooner. And people didn't want to believe that it was just going to keep going on as it was. And when it's going from May to June, no, there's got to be something firmer put down here.
Right, and as we know, James, David Lammy has called Israel's actions repellent, monstrous, and extremist. Do you agree that this language is now reflective of a broader shift in Western patience with Netanyahu's government?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have the trio. We have UK, France, and Canada, which are now stepping up the pressure and which are seeking to address the situation. And I think that we need even more countries to join because, again, there's just a real desire to bring this to an end.
Right. Well, James, as always, thank you so much for joining us on NDTV. Really appreciate your time and your views. Well, as we speak, thousands of babies in Gaza could die within days without immediate food and medical aid. This is what the United Nations has warned as Israel allowed a limited number of humanitarian trucks into the besieged enclave for the first time in weeks. The UN has said categorically that they had been granted permission to send around 108 trucks into Gaza following an 11-week blockade. And this, as the UN humanitarian chief, Tom Fletcher, warned very clearly that 14,000 babies in Gaza could die within 48 hours if they do not receive urgent nutrition and urgent care. The other crucial story we're tracking, the Indian diplomatic outreach on Operation Sindoor through the all-party delegation's visits. Well, one delegation will depart today. They will start with the first of the 7 delegations that are set to leave for the United Arab Emirates. And over the next 4 days till the 25th of May, the remaining 6 delegations will also leave the country to address audiences, policymakers, and elected representatives in several other countries. In all, as we have been covering with my colleague Aishwarya Jain, the delegations will visit 32 countries to convey New Delhi's stance on terrorism following the deadly Pahalgam attack and Operation Sindoor. As you can see, Aishwarya is with us this morning with a quick update. Aishwarya, thanks so much for making time for us this morning. The first team, as we're given to understand, leaves for the UAE today?
Well, that's right. The first of the 7 multi-party delegations which will travel to international capitals of different countries to articulate India's position will leave today for United Arab Emirates. It is Srikant Sindh's delegation that will head to UAE and will also visit Hong Kong and Nigeria. The other members will be traveling in this particular delegation are Madan Kumar Mishra, Ahluwalia, Sasmit Patra, E.T. Mohammed Bashir of the IUNL, and Ambassador Suzanne Chinoy. Remember, it is yesterday. The first briefing by the Foreign Secretary Vikram Mukti was concluded in the Parliament, and it was stated to all the members that how the closure was given to them as far as Pakistan involvement in terrorism activities, just not in India, but across the world in so many years, so many decades. And it is just not a few years that Pakistan has been involved in Pakistan terrorism. And it is these delegations will be meeting their counterparts, in different cities. There's officials. There are former ambassadors in every delegation. Amy will be briefing them to them time to time as far as what and how India's stance should be put forward in front of these different countries so that Pakistan can be completely isolated on it.
Aishwarya, as always, thanks so much for joining us with the lowdown. And the other big headline we're tracking, Indian writer, lawyer, activist Banu Mushtaq has scripted history by winning the International Booker Prize for the short story anthology Heart Lamp. It's the first book written in the Kannada language, which is spoken in Karnataka, to win the prestigious prize. The stories in Heart Lamp were translated into English by Deepa Bahasti and featuring 12 short stories written by Ms. Mushtaq over 3 decades from 1990 to 2023. Heart Lamp actually captures the hardships of Muslim women living in southern India. My colleague Deepak Bopanna has been tracking the finer developments for us. He joins us live at the moment. Deepak, a big moment for the country and Ms. Mushtaq as she scripts history.
Absolutely. It's a massive moment. This is, of course, one of the most prestigious awards out there, and an Indian winning that, of course, is a big feat in itself. She hails from Karnataka. Her works have been awarded in the state as well here. She's written at least about 6, short stories, novels, essays, and even poetry for several years now. The Karnataka Sahitya Academy, of course, has awarded her. She's been a renowned writer in Karnataka. She's written on several interesting topics, and that's what sets her apart. Like you, of course, mentioned, be it on the aspects of caste, and the aspects of community, on the aspects of patriarchy, and more. There have been various concepts that are deep-rooted. It's somewhere a sense of belonging to some of the writings that she has. And it has been appreciated across the country. And now, with her book, which was written predominantly in Kannada up until now, being translated by author Deepa there and being published in different parts of the world, recognition coming internationally as well.
As always, Deepak, thank you so much for joining us with that crucial update. Meanwhile, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar is on a 3-nation European tour, his first overseas visit after the India-Pakistan conflict. He has met delegates in the Netherlands and is scheduled to visit Denmark and Germany. And Dr. Jaishankar explored opportunities in semiconductors, artificial intelligence, green hydrogen with the Netherlands. He also had high-level meetings with top Dutch leadership, including their Prime Minister and Foreign Minister. Meanwhile, a multi-pronged boycott of Turkey as well as Azerbaijan, along with Pakistan, driven by public sentiment in India and strengthened by social media campaigns, has already had an economic and diplomatic impact. In case you didn't know, Turkey and Azerbaijan, that are also popular budget holiday destinations for Indians, have both issued statements backing Islamabad in the conflict. In fact, reports now state that the clamor to ban the import of even apples from Turkey, which supports Pakistan in India's fight against terrorism, continues to grow louder. So trade, travel, and brands are being phased out. We did a deep dive for you earlier. Listen in. In the aftermath of the Pahalgam terror attack and during Operation Sindoor, diplomatic lines were clearly drawn. While India acted against terror, some nations, notably Turkey and Azerbaijan, chose to back Pakistan. Well, now India is responding not with rhetoric, but with decisive economic and commercial measures. So in this report, we look at how Indian businesses, government bodies, and consumers are gradually but firmly cutting ties with nations perceived to be unsupportive of India's national security concerns. On the 2nd of May, the Indian government formally halted all imports from Pakistan, including those routed through third countries. This move targets an estimated $500 million in indirect trade, with the aim to plug all channels of commerce that may be benefiting entities across the border. Following this, the Confederation of All India Traders also announced a halt to trade with Turkey and Azerbaijan. This is significant because trade between India and Turkey alone stood at over $10 billion in the financial year 2024. With this, the message is clear. Business as usual will not continue with countries that publicly support Pakistan in matters of cross-border terrorism. On the retail front, India's Central Consumer Protection Authority has directed e-commerce platforms like Amazon, Flipkart and Etsy to remove Pakistani flags and related merchandise from their listings. Meanwhile, Turkish brands are seeing reduced visibility in Indian e-commerce. Myntra has suspended sales of Turkish brands, while Reliance's Ajio has paused listings for brands like Cotton, LC Waikiki and Mavi. The aviation sector has also seen direct action. Turkish ground handling company Celebi has lost its security clearance in India, ending its operations across 9 airports, with the official reason being cited as national security. So tourism is another area seeing a noticeable dip. According to Make My Trip, bookings to Turkey and Azerbaijan have fallen by 60%, while cancellations have spiked by 250% in just a week. Travel portals like Ixigo, Easy Trip Planners and Cox & Kings have reportedly reduced or paused their promotions to these destinations. Make My Trip, meanwhile, advises against non-essential travel to the two countries. The impact has also reached the cultural space. The Confederation of All India Traders has appealed to Indian production houses to stop filming and conducting promotional activities in Turkey. Music platforms have started removing thumbnails featuring Pakistani artists. Meanwhile, Indian authorities have blocked YouTube channels of several Pakistani personalities, and the platform has confirmed receiving official requests for such action, with potential consequences for non-compliance. With this, India asserts that this isn't about bans or bluster. It's about influence and intent. India is choosing who to engage with more carefully. And for countries engaging with India, whether diplomatically, economically, or culturally, the message is subtle but firm. Mutual respect matters, and choices have consequences. Parmeshwar Bava for NDTV World.
When facts are fragmented, we put the pieces together. Where power collides with truth, we are there.
Behind me is that massive security arrangements that are in place.
Behind fractured boundaries, we clear the fog of war. Fault Lines with Gauri Dwivedi, only on NDTV World.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
In 2003 is when Munna Bhai MBBS happens to you.
Right.
Dr. Asthana. And then in 2009 is when you become virus in Three Idiots. And then you make a directorial venture through Mehta Boys.
Right.
It has been quite a journey.
Yes.
But these two characters were particularly those which are seen as iconic. Would you say that they reshaped your entire, acting career?
You're absolutely right. People identify.
Welcome back. Let's take you through the recent surge in cases of COVID-19 in South Asia. Well, Thailand, Singapore and Hong Kong are all witnessing a recent surge in cases of COVID-19. In fact, if we talk about India, there has been a mild uptake in comparison to South Asian countries. In fact, while there has been an alarm bell ringing in India too, new cases have come to the fore from states like Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra and Karnataka. Let me just break down the numbers for you. According to the statistics displayed on the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare's website, India has 257 active COVID cases at present. If you take a look at that map on your screens at the moment, Kerala is leading the tally in terms of COVID cases. You've got Tamil Nadu showing quite an uptick in cases, even Maharashtra, Karnataka, Delhi, Gujarat, Haryana and Sikkim. In other crucial news, Apple is accelerating its efforts to move a significant portion of iPhone manufacturing out of China. The goal is to produce most of the iPhones sold in the United States from India by the end of next year. And this shift, as we have covered, has sparked criticism from US President Donald Trump, who recently urged the Apple CEO Tim Cook to stop building new factories in India and manufacture in America instead. But there are reports that state that Honhai Precision Industry Co., the main assembler of Apple's iPhones, has committed $1.5 billion to its Indian subsidiary. This is what an Economic Times report states. The investment was made through its Singapore-based unit, according to a stock exchange filing that was seen on the 19th of May, which is Monday. Meanwhile, Elon Musk said he's committed to still leading Tesla 5 years from now and expects to pare back his political spending, assuaging some investors' concerns about the future of his most valuable company. The billionaire offered new details about his plans in a wide-ranging interview that also touched on his compensation, Tesla's sliding sales, and a possible spin-off of SpaceX's Starlink satellite business. Thank you for investing your time and watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we'll keep tracking the latest for you. Do stay tuned.
When facts are fragmented, we put the pieces together. Where power collides with truth, we are there.
Behind me is that massive security arrangements that are in place.
Behind fractured boundaries, we clear the fog of war. Fault Lines with Gauri Dwivedi, only on NDTV World.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora, we cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.